Hi. Okay, so this week we are going to be talking about Hagar. The online Bible study person of the week is Hagar. How exciting, huh? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say a prayer right now. Father God, in Jesus' name, we just ask that you condition our hearts right now, that we are able to receive the word that is about to be shared, the study, and that it just blesses us, it speaks to us, it encourages us and strengthens us for our journey, transition process, just helps us this season where we're at. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so this is just really, really exciting stuff. I love this, everything that I've learned about this. Okay, so what I have done is I have done a lot of research in different things, and what you can do is you could do searches yourself in commentaries. You can also Google stuff. I have a lot of books and a lot of things too also that I use. Just to give you an idea of what I do, I go back into the culture of that time and the history also. I think that's very important when we read the Bible. So we don't just, apply thinking that they're talking about all our culture and our time, when a lot of the times what they say or what they're doing is referring to their culture and time. And then it's kind of an easier way to learn that way. So anyway, this is what I'm going to do. So there is some things that I have found out, some very interesting facts regarding Hagar, is that Hagar was a princess at one time. She was Pharaoh's daughter. And when Sarah and Abraham went to Egypt, Sarah was taken as Pharaoh's wife when Abraham lied and said that Sarah was his sister. Okay. And during that time, during that Abraham mess, correct? No, during that time, what happened was when they left, okay, then what is believed to this day is that Hagar, who was a Egyptian princess that served Sarah during that time, left with her. Okay, so that's what's believed to happen. And basically, she took a huge demotion because she was a princess and she was now going to be an Egyptian slave in Abraham's family. So, but she didn't know Abraham was wealthy, and she didn't know that God was with Abraham. So the demotion, in order to be in God's will, was worth it. Okay, it was worth it for her. I know you guys are going, what do you mean it was worth it? Like, it's a big mess. No, it was worth it. And I'll read and I'll explain to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read out of Genesis NIV version. And I'm going to start at 16. Okay, chapter 16. Okay, now Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Pause. She's saying, perhaps I can build a family through her. Basically, if she gets pregnant, I'll go ahead and keep her kid and I'll build a family through her. Are you listening to her? And that was kind of common in that time, in that culture. But just because it was common doesn't mean that everyone loved it and enjoyed it. Okay? So now we're going to keep going. Abraham agreed to what Sarai said. So Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years. Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. Okay? So we are learning that Hagar was an Egyptian slave, but she was also considered a wife of Abraham. Okay. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Okay. And there's a lot of different studies and versions and commentaries and everything that say that she despised Sarah because she could not conceive and have kids. Okay. I'm a woman, right? And I believe this is me, and I'm not saying this is stone, but I'm a woman, okay? I think that if I was to despise Sarai, I believe that it would be because this woman is telling me, okay, to be her husband's other wife, to sleep with him, conceive a child with him. I have this in my body for 9 months. Okay. I'm doing all the work. Okay. Plus, this child is going to be my blood. And I'm just going to hand my child over to her so she can have her family that she didn't want to wait on God for. Okay. And she created herself. I'm going to give her my kid. Right. So I think that, there could have been a lot of reasons why Hagar had resentment and looked down on her. You know, I think there could have been a lot of reasons. I think that could have very well been one of the reasons. Like, I'm going to do all the work and you're just going to walk away with all the benefits, right? Especially with the kind of mindset she came from. She didn't come from a slave mentality. She came from a princess mentality, right? Okay. So anyway, so we're going to continue. Okay, when she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "You're responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." Okay, now she's blaming Abraham. She goes before the Lord. She can't wait on God. She's making her own mess. And now that it's real messy, now she's blaming Abraham. Okay. So then he turns around and says, "Your slave is in your hands," right? You created your own mess. You fix it. Abraham said, "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar and she fled from her. Okay. So I'm stopping right there for a second. There's a lot of different teachings, a lot of different commentaries that state that Hagar was, when it said mistreated in the Bible, it really meant mistreated. Okay. Mistreated. They believe that she was overworked. Like, you're going to act like you're going to be my slave. I'm going to treat you like a slave type thing. Okay. And like poorly. Okay. And so she made her work harder, it was believed. And also some commentaries even say she might have even hit her. Okay. All right. So it was starting to get really ugly, really catty there. Okay. In that place. So yeah, what woman's going to stick around and be mistreated by their master like that? Okay. Like, there's a lot of women today, right? We go to work, like, we're just going to sit there and just be treated a certain way from our bosses and so forth. Right. I mean, there's a lot of women that walk, there's a lot of women that stay. It could be very, very trying and draining depending on how bad that mistreatment is. And it clearly says that she was really mistreated. Okay. So she bailed. She's like, "I'm out of here. I am out of here." Right. So she takes off. So then, verse 7 says, "The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to shore. And he said, 'Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?'" God's so good at this, isn't he? It's like, where have you come from and where are you going? It's like, where have you come from, Egypt? Where are you going? Back to Egypt? Like, he's being, he's trying to point that out to her. Like, what are you doing? You're going back to someplace not good for you, right? That's really what he's saying. So he knows what's good for her right now. It might be uncomfortable. It might be an uncomfortable place for her right now. She might be mistreated a little bit, okay? It might get tough sometimes, but he knew what was better for her. He knew what was going to come out of it on the other side if she stuck through, right? So then she says, "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." What is he saying? So he's telling her, go back and submit yourself to her. Hey, she probably needed work, right? We all do. He's saying he's going to tell if he tells you to go back and to submit to somebody that's not treating you right, at work or wherever, meanwhile, temporarily, It's because there's a very good purpose on the other side. I mean, look at everything Joseph went through. He got thrown in a pit. He got thrown into prison unfairly. I mean, but there was something going on there, okay? There was some sort of preparation, right? And then he became second in command in Egypt, correct? So there's a purpose for everything that God does. You know, he might set us up to a situation to where we might feel is not fair. We might feel it's not good. We might feel uncomfortable, which in her case, she was incredibly uncomfortable, and it was incredibly not fair to her. Okay. But God did not dismiss Hagar. Understand this. Everyone always preaches about Sarah. Sarah went before God. Sarah made her own mess. Yes, she did. She did all that stuff. But the focus is all on Sarah. And then Sarah sends away Hagar. You don't want to be like that, when you got to do all this, all this stuff. And then no one ever brings up Hagar again. Well, there's a lot more I'm going to explain to you about Hagar today. But right now, what I want to tell you is the focus is that she was a princess. She was demoted. God knew she was demoted. She had to submit. She was mistreated, okay? Someone was telling her, we want you to do all the work, but we want to carry your blessing. God didn't allow it. He didn't allow it to happen. He's telling her right here, I will increase your descendants. He didn't say, I'll increase Sarah's descendants, but we all know he did, but through Isaac. But basically, God allowed Hagar to keep her child. Okay, he allowed her to keep her child and her, in that time, boys were like huge inheritances. And she's being told she's going to have all these descendants, too many she can't even count. So she's really going to get blessed for this. God saw what she was going through, okay? He saw her, right? So then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord also told her, this isn't the really good stuff, so okay, I'm going to skip 11, but anyways, 11 is that her son's going to be kind of wild, and he's not going to agree with everybody and all that. Well, okay, I'll read it. I'll read it because I'll get into that one too. So 11, the angel of the Lord also said to her, you are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. I know that sounds so horrible, okay? But she was allowed to keep her son. And guess what? Despite that situation, despite that whole situation on how her son was going to be and all those things, she was still taken care of. She was still taken care of. Those are all things that are kind of out of her control. I mean, that's God telling her how her son's going to be and all that. But the bottom line is that I'm sure he took care of his mom, right? And she was taken care of. That's the bottom line, what I'm trying to get at. Not that it's right to be the way Ishmael was, okay? But that she was always taken care of. She wasn't forgotten. She wasn't tossed aside from the Lord, okay? She wasn't tossed aside from Abraham, for that matter, too. And I'm going to read more into that. Okay. I know you're going, what? Yes, she was. No. Wait a minute. Let me finish. Okay. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. Okay. So I'm stopping right there at 13. So I love that part because, I have this thing with my friends where I say, I see you, like Avatar, right? And I go, I see you, right? So it's funny. So, that whole meaning was like, I see you, like I see through you, like I see who you are, right? And she's trying to say here, you are the God that actually sees me. He cares that much about her intimately to where he didn't allow her. He sent her back. I'm sure he gave her strength to go back and submit, right? He spoke to her. He gave her all these promises to hold on to. So he's telling her, go back because there's blessings waiting for you. Okay. So now we're going to go to Genesis 21. And this is the NIV version too. I like pausing in between and stuff. So I'm reading the Bible to you, but I'm pausing in between and I'm giving you a lot of stuff that I've learned, which makes the whole Bible study together, you know. Okay, so chapter 21. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age. At the very time God had promised him, Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 years old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh at me. She has added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And I just really love that part too, even though we're not talking about Sarah, but Sarah really messed up, okay, going ahead of God. She really messed up. She really did her own way. She did her own thing. But see, God's promise still stood. And that's what blesses me with her story, okay? She still got her son. It didn't matter, okay, how old she was or whatever, but she still got him, okay? The promise still came. Okay, so the lighting is going in and out again, okay, whatever. Sorry, I'm seeing it get dark. So I'm like, okay, so now we're going to go to verse 8. The child grew and was weaned, and on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham had a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had born to Abraham was mocking. Okay, and we all know, it already said he's not going to get along with all his brothers. He's not going to get along with his family. He's going to be a wild donkey of a man, right? He's not going to listen to anybody. So we knew that was coming. We knew they weren't going to get along. Okay, so, okay, so, and she said to Abraham, get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. Okay. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. But God said to Abraham, see, here we go with the woman stuff. And then Abraham stepping in again, right? The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. But God said to Abraham, do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring. God still blessed them. God still blessed Hagar. God still blessed Ishmael. Okay? And he, felt bad for that situation. So he still blessed them. He didn't just bless him. He didn't just bless him, but he made him a nation. Right? Okay. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He sent them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, right? Because times get hard, right? When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. As he sat there, she began to sob. So yes, during times of testing, okay, when she was sent away, she was exiled after all this, right? I mean, I hope you're really putting yourself in her shoes, okay? When she left the second time, it was because she didn't have a choice. She was being sent away with just some water and stuff and her boy, and had to walk through a desert. So she's at this point thinking, whatever God promised me, I don't see it right now. I'm in a desert, okay? I'm setting my son somewhere, and I'm going to be away from my son just because I can't bear to watch my son die. That's how bad it is. She sees it really drying up around her. She sees it really with no hope right now. Again, this is the one that was the princess, then was demoted into a slave, then was asked to carry a child for somebody else, okay? Was allowed to keep her child. You see how God's protecting her this whole time? Was allowed to keep her child, was told to go back and submit, Okay, she did, but God promised her descendants so numerous that she wouldn't even be able to count them, correct? So she went back. Then she's exiled all of a sudden when she thought they were going to be able to stay there, probably, right? Because God probably never told her you're going to be sent off again. That was all new to her. That was all like a change of plans. What is God doing? So she finds herself in a desert. Imagine yourself as a mom, and you sit your kid somewhere, and you're like, it's over. I mean, this is sad stuff, okay? And we've all gone through those hard times where there's a change of plans, right? Before we get to the promise God has for us, and it seems like it's about to really die out. Okay, either we're going to permanently give up and walk out on this thing, or it's just going to take us alive, because it's awful. And it just doesn't look like there's any hope at all. She was in a place in the desert where there was no hope around her at all. There was not one little evidence of hope around her, okay, to keep her going. Okay, so then it says, as she sat there, she began to sob. Right? She's just crying out in the desert. My heart hurts for her right now. Okay. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar?" God Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just getting all like, I'm just gonna, okay, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God, I'm like getting like kind of emotional a little bit, okay? God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid." God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Remember, this is the God who sees you. Remember? Lift the boy up. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. She was not forgotten from God. She might have been kicked to the curb from Sarah, and she might have felt like, why isn't Abraham defending the matter? Okay. But God promised Abraham he was going to take care of her, and that was probably hard for him too. Okay. But see, God took care of her. Everything that she went through wasn't in vain. Okay. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy. God was with the boy. Okay. Again, God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. Okay. Isn't that beautiful? I'm telling you. Does anyone really talk about Hagar to this point? I mean, does everyone really notice all this stuff about this woman and everything that she went through and she endured, and God came through for her? You know, I mean, he loves all of us. He has no favorites. Okay. He sure. Okay. I hate saying he has no favorites, but then Isaac gets the inheritance. But you need to understand that Ishmael was blessed the same. And he was, that was all a mistake. That whole situation was a mistake. It was something that was not supposed to happen. That was Sarah's mess. But God blessed them because they were innocent to this mess. Okay? God blessed them still. So there's a lot of different teachings and stuff that I was figuring out when I was going through all this. There's actually a belief that when Sarah died, okay, then Abraham went to go get Hagar and brought her back with Ishmael. Okay, Abraham married another woman named Keturah, and there's a lot of different conflicts and commentaries and so forth, and the Torah and all these different things where there's not solid proof in a lot of different areas, but when I'm reading Genesis 25, I'm kind of like, it sounds like they did come back. You know how the Bible kind of skips some things sometimes? It kind of did sound like they were back before Abraham died. And let me explain to you why. Okay, this is pretty good. Okay, so we're going to go to Genesis 25, and I think the best version, you can look at this up in every single version, but the one that I looked up was the expanded Bible, and I don't usually use that one, but it was just a really good interpretation of it. So I wanted to go ahead and go through that. So Genesis 25, 5 to 11. Abraham left, which means he gave everything he owned to Isaac. This is when he was going to pass away. But before Abraham died, while he was still alive, he did give gifts to the sons of his other wives, okay, which was Keturah and Hagar. Then he sent them to the east to be away from Isaac to prevent rivalry over Abraham's inheritance. So at some point, they were back, right? Or Abraham was in touch with them, right? So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it was while Sarah was alive. I'm thinking it was after Sarah died. Abraham sent stuff and he made sure that he was still actually taking care of Ishmael, is what I'm trying to tell you. He still sent stuff. And in other commentaries and other scholars, okay, regarding all the Torah and all those different teachings and so forth, they have even said, some of them, that that Hagar never remarried. She just raised Ishmael and was devoted to raising him, and she was without anybody. And the only person she was with then was Abraham. So all that time she was without a man. You know, there's different sayings and stuff. So she was kind of like the woman, you know, there's a lot of women like that. So but see, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, what? I mean, I've never heard this before, but it's basically saying he did give gifts to the sons of his other wives while he was still alive. While he was still alive, he was taking care of Ishmael and these other kids. Okay? Then he sent them to the east to be away from Isaac to prevent rivalry over Abraham's inheritance. So it sounds like they were with them and then he sent them away, either right before the death or after the death, one of those, because he didn't want the rivalry. So he kind of wanted them stationed somewhere else because everyone knew Isaac was going to get the big inheritance, right? But he was taking care of his other sons the whole time while he was alive. In other words, he made sure that, I mean, I just really like that still. It's like he was still taking care of them. He didn't have to. He could have sent her off and never even mentioned her or took care of her again. And he could have just wrote off his son and everything like Sarah would have wanted him to, right? Right? Okay. So then we go to verse 7. Abraham lived to be, these are the days of the years of the life of Abraham, 175 years old. He breathed his last breath, expired and died at an old age. Okay, this is what I think is amazing. And this is what also tells me that he was in touch with them. They were either with them or they were moved already at that point and given distance to prevent rivalry. But listen to this. Abraham lived to be, okay, so already said that. Okay, how old did he live to be? Okay. In verse 9, it says, his sons Isaac and Ishmael. And this is another thing with Keturah, okay? It mentions Keturah's sons, but it never mentions Keturah's sons the way it mentions Ishmael and Isaac's sons in the Bible. Like, when it talks about Ishmael's sons, it talks about him having 12 sons, like 12 tribe leaders. I mean, it talks about his descendants being numerous. God had promised her. So she got a huge blessing too, okay? It doesn't really talk about Keturah's sons as much as it does Ishmael and Isaac's. You know, they're like the ones that stand out the most in the word and so forth. So, and it says here his sons, and see, the Bible's only pointing out Isaac and Ishmael. It says his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of, I'm going to mess up this name here, Machpelah, Machpelah, that's what I'm going to say, in the field of Ephraim, east of Mamre. So I think what I'm trying to, and he was buried with Sarah. But I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that how are both of his sons going to bury him if he sent away his son and he never had anything to do with his son ever again with Hagar? How are both of his sons going to know to be there to bury him, right? So there's a lot that's not there. There's a lot that is there that we know. And one thing we do know is that Hagar was taken care of. She wasn't forgotten about. And when Abraham was alive still, possibly after Sarah's death, he took care of them still. Okay. And whether he retrieved her and called her back or not, I don't think that really matters. But what matters is that she was taken care of. Okay. What matters was that Ishmael was a very powerful man, also a very powerful leader that I'm sure took care of his mom. Okay. And I just want to let you know that when it looks like you are in the position where you have a lot and you're downsizing or you're demoting or you're being demoted or you're being treated in a certain way and things seem unfairly to you, but you're doing everything unto God, right? And you're doing what God is telling you because what he's promised you, that he is going to take care of you, that he is going to keep his promises to you despite of how your desert season looks, okay? Despite of how when she first left, right? It was because she was being mistreated and she was possibly even hit. We don't know. We don't know, right? It was ugly, really ugly, like a cat fight, okay? And she took off. She's like, I'm out of here, right? And I think what's really beautiful is that God did not allow her to do all the work for someone else's benefit, right? She was able to do the work for her own benefit. She was blessed. Okay. So anyways, I just want to give you hope today. I pray that the Holy Spirit really touched you and you really got a lot out of this. I really pray this encouraged you a lot. I'm sorry I didn't write up the study notes and discussion. I'm sure you can create some really creative ones out of this. And I just want to tell you to keep hanging on, keep doing what you're doing, keep pressing through. And if you're called to go back in a situation like that, the only way I can, I don't even know. But anyways, sometimes submitting is difficult. Okay. Sometimes, maybe submitting to leadership, maybe submitting to your boss, maybe submitting to your spouse. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it sometimes can be difficult. But if God has promised you something out of it, then he's going to deliver his promise because God's not a liar. Okay. No matter how horrible the situation looks, no matter how the desert feels, God's always going to bring you something to refresh you. He's always going to bring you the strength that you need, and he's going to take care of you for everything that you've gone through. So I just have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week when I bring the next online Bible study, Woman of the Week, next week. So anyways, you have a great weekend. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.